Greetings! It is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the lands, legends, planes, and planeswalkers of Magic the Gathering, introducing you to the various things within the world setting that help define the world and universe of Magic the Gathering. Today, I'm introducing you to a new planeswalker, Ajani Goldmane. He is a white-aligned leonin planeswalker from the plane of Alara. He specializes in magic that purifies the body and soul, and within allies brings out their spiritual essence and strength. Now, he was born in Qualia Valley in Naya on Alara. Now, Ajani was born albino, a stigma in amongst his people, so he was a pariah from a very young age and sort of shunned to the outer edges of his tribe. The only one within his family that actually cared for him was his brother, Jael, who, despite having an albino brother, earned great prestige in the tribe and eventually rose to the position of Ka, leader of the tribe. Now, he hoped that his new position would grant Ajani some better and more status within the tribe, but he still had that position of pariah, unfortunately. And Ajani, though, still accepted this. Now, he did have one friend within the tribe, though, a tribal shaman, Zalaki. Now, Ajani was also, though, known to be a great healer. His ability to sort of manipulate and tap into the essence of people's souls and bodies meant that he could heal people in ways that were beyond what a normal leonin could do. Jael hoped would bring prestige to Ajani. And though he was a prestigious healer, he still was this pariah. Now, on the eve of an important celebration, here's where our storyline really comes in. Ajani was attacked by a group of humans, which may not have been unusual, but it turned out they were specifically targeting him. Now, he, of course, sort of passed it off, and Jael was a little worried, but they continue with the celebration in which a great hunt occurred. Ajani slayed Godsire, a powerful beast, but in the moment of his victory, it was stolen by one of his greatest tormentors, Tanakh, who took the credit for it and basically left Ajani beaten and bloody because he was weakened from the battle with Godsire and an easy target to basically steal the glory from. So Ajani went and licked his wounds effectively, but that night someone snuck in and threw a vial of dark mana, black mana, upon the fire there, and shades burst forth and attacked and killed Jael. Now, Ajani discovered his brother's body, and in his grief, his planeswalker spark ignited. He found himself in Jund, under the attack by the dragon Karthus. He was saved by Sarkam Vol. Sarkam Vol basically introduced him to the basics of planewalking. He found out that he was a new planeswalker. He told him what he should do. But he instructed him to feel that anger and vengeance deep in his soul and use it to fuel his vengeance against those that slayed his brother. So Sarkam basically said, use these dark thoughts in order to gain your revenge, the primal instinct within it. He then taught him how to, of course, planeswalk back to Naya from Jund. So Ajani returned home, and he, of course, found out what sort of had become of his brother. He took his brother's ashes upon cremating him and covered himself in it, and then sought vengeance against the one he first thought would be the most likely, Tanakh. He threatened him at this cliff edge, and in a scuffle, Ajani fell and got injured. He just instinctively planeswalked into the blind eternities from there, and ended up in Bant, where he was rescued by Elspeth and cared for and healed. Eventually, though, he did decide to return to his tribe, where he confronted Tanakh's mother and learned about a warrior that has something to do with it, Marasai. Going to confront Marasai with Muriel, the two of them informed him that he had to go battle against a dragon in order to gain his vengeance. He thought, Jund, of course. He had been there before. He had dealt with dragons. So he planeswalked to Jund and found it wasn't there, at least in the same way he thought it was. The conflux had actually begun. The shards of Alara were becoming one. The forces of Alara had sort of been, some of them had been uniting at this point, and he found this character Kresh and joined forces with him, and eventually sort of towards the edge where Grixis was, defeated the enemy of Kresh. And in doing so, he did learn about Nicol Bolas. He also learned that Zakili was responsible for his brother's death. So when this united army was beginning to basically go against the forces of Nicol Bolas, he turned his rage to Zakili. He was going to strike him down. But then Nicol Bolas showed up, and he began to absorb the power of the Maelstrom and grow incredibly strong, effectively going to destroy everything. Ajani severed the mana connections of the entire armies that had been gathering there, and then took the small portions of the Maelstrom that remained, enhancing himself with this power, and then used it to summon the spirit of Nicol Bolas to fight himself. He used his very spiritual power, tapping into the spirits of those, and used it to summon a spiritual essence of Nicol Bolas to battle with himself, eventually driving the dragon from the plane. But his victory was short-lived in a way. He had earned the respect of his tribe. They offered him the position of Ka. He was a great hero. He drove away this dragon which was going to destroy everything. He didn't want it anymore. He decided it was time for him to travel to the various planes. And he left Zakili in charge, actually. They had, to a degree, made up for what had happened. Now, he traveled to many places, and he has had connections with many leonids in various planes, teaching them healing ways as he travels about to the various places. But he always thought to find Elspeth again. She had left Band. She eventually began to track him down and found her in Urborg. She was in these gladiatorial pits in Domiria, in Urborg, and he found her battling against this armored planeswalker who we never learned the name of. And as she's about to strike him down and slay him, he stays her hand. He takes her back to her home and tries to talk to her, tries to put some sense into her. But she has seen with the conflux that Bant is gone from what it was. It was this sanctuary to her. And with the melding of the various shards, she feels it's going to just be overrun by the other ones and destroyed. And that paradise that she had found, gone. So Elspeth is just wants nothing of him. And his last act at this point is to leave her armor for her. So they go their separate ways for some time. But he learns that he decides to continue checking in on her and finds that she had head to Theros. So he heads to Theros, which he had, of course, connection with the Leonids of Theros before. But he meets with a friend of his, Brimaz, who he had befriended last time he was on Theros, and now was a king. He learns of what had happened to Elspeth while she was in Theros and the tragedies that had occurred for her, and he decides to journey and find her with the help of Brimaz. Ajani eventually does find Elspeth and joins with her on her latest crusade to undo some of the damage that had occurred in Theros. They're journeying to the temple of Kufpix. Along the way, crossing the ocean, they encounter this ship that's summoned apparently by a legendary mariner. It turns out to be Koira, and Thassa confronts the two of them going after Koira, but the group of them. And Koira, though, sort of battles with Thassa as the others are let go, and eventually reach the temple Kufix, where they are granted passions into the Nyx, the dream realm, or the realm of enchantment that the gods reside in normally. There they confront Zavagos, and Elspeth, during the battle, strikes him down. They, of course, learn, unfortunately, the way that they entered, the quest that they did, and the enemy that Elspeth had made of Heliod. There were two gods, that would do harm to them should they find them. Heliod found them, and struck Elspeth down with the very weapon he had originally granted her in order to fight. Ajani was devastated. He managed to escape back to Theros with her, and was ready to fight the forces of death itself in order to try to protect her. But his friends from there, they stopped him. He recovered from the wounds he had had in the battles, and he didn't know what to do at first. He decided to get vengeance, though. He began traveling to the various temples for a little while, and especially Heliod's temples. And he spread the word that the gods themselves, what they had done, to sort of have people turn against the gods. He actually informed Brintz and a number of Leonid priests the fact that the gods are created through the beliefs of people, And so he did his best to weaken these creatures, these things that had struck down Elspeth. And he left then, a hero and a usurper of power, in a way. Now, though, he wears Elspeth's cloak as a sign of respect to her. So he traveled eventually to Kamigawa to meet with his old friend Tamio and to talk to her about his loss and to try to recover from it. But he learns of the figure Tezzeret and the horrible things he did in Kamigawa and the fact that he had been seen in New Phyrexia and had been doing things there. He decides that he has done enough crimes and needs to be tracked down, and justice needs to be dealt upon Tezzeret. He eventually travels to Kaladesh, discovering that he is there. There he gets in with the rebels groups. He connects with them, and along the way, though, he does rescue a figure in the rebels and meets with the Gatewatch. And that's where our story of Ajani ends now, with Aether Revolt, with a new card of his coming out, where he is now going to be joining with the Gatewatch, encountering them for the first time. So Ajani has actually been printed 7 times in cards, which I have shown a few of already. And the only little thing I want to note about him, the symbol on his shoulder represents his tribe, and the markings over his eye represent the warrior status he has within that tribe. So that's it for today. I introduced you to Ajani Goldmane, a figure that has a pretty tragic story, but has risen to be a teacher, mentor, and healer of others, despite the tragedy that has come upon him repeatedly in his life. And he always seems to stand up again, no matter how much the world breaks him down. He is a powerful planeswalker, master of healing magics and spiritual magics, and he's one of the only forces in the known multiverse that has opposed Nicol Bolas successfully before. He's an interesting figure that will mean a lot, probably, in sets to come. So if any questions, comments, anything you would say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you could always check out my Patreon, linked in the description below. If you want to check out some other Magic the Gathering folks, I can always suggest Card Bazaar, They Said We Said, and Tasty Snacky. They put out some great Magic-based content if you want to check some stuff out in between my stuff. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.